welcome to Tribe 9. This has been a controversial game to say the least. Rated M for mature. This game that went public about 2 weeks ago is not controversial for the rating. If you check the Steam reviews, they're not pretty, but they were originally worse and have improved since the devs have some big changes coming regarding summon rates, and we'll go over that. And I definitely have some complaints about this game too. Some of them are similar to what you've heard already, but I might have some for different reasons than what most others are talking about as well. This will be more of a first impressions video since parts of the game really need their own dedicated explanation or guide, like tension cards and some other parts. So I'll try and touch on the main points of the game and then give you some final thoughts. So let's take a look at this thing. Now, I wasn't in the beta for this game, but a lot were, and they were not happy regarding the way certain reward systems, summon drop percentages, and other things changed. Many are even calling it a bait and switch. Now, as of the time of this writing, the summon rates are still low, but they will change after March 3rd, when the maintenance window is complete between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So right now, the time of this recording, these are the rates. So for a standard hero, you have 0.3% for a 3-star. It's 0.3% for a tension card, and it is going to be 2.55% for a 2-star, as well as the 2-star tension cards. And your 1-star should be 94.3%. Now, if we move on to the pickup banner, your current rates as of right now, before the maintenance window on March 3rd, your 3-star pickup character banner is 0.3%, 2-star 1.7%, and then on your pickup tension cards, you got 1.7% for those 2 stars, and it should be the same on the 1 stars, 94.3%. But all of that is going up. Your new rates will be shown on the screen here. I'm going to put them up there. Your standard summons are going to go 3-star will be 2%, your 2-star will be 8%, your 1-star will be 90%, and for your pickup banner summons, you're going to have 3-star at 1.5% and 2-star at 8%. So it's going to be a significant increase over what it was before. So what does this mean for you? Well, if you plan to join the game after the big maintenance on March 3rd, then you'll start off with the new summon rates. But if you play before then, you'll start off with the older rates. However, they're refunding everyone's game currency, so you'll get your chance to get your heroes with the new summon rates without wasting any resources anyways. I think that's a pretty good win, and so I do applaud the devs for listening to people's feedback, making adjustments quickly. That's not something that we see all the time. The closest thing I've played recently that I can compare this combat to is probably Aether Gazer. It's a full 3D combat atmosphere where you have access to all 3 party members in battle. You can switch to them on the fly as needed, and I'm going to show you that here. Let's go ahead and get into something. Now you have 3 sets of attacks. You have your primary, your secondary, and your strategy skill. You can evade, and this comes in extremely important because when the enemy is in extreme tension mode, that's where their attack strength is incredibly high and it can damage your team super easy and knock them out. So tension plays a big role in this game on both sides. You also have a counter, but the counter needs to be timed out just right in order to get it to work. You can still hit people with the counter without having to time it, but when they're trying to hit you with the attack, you need to time out that counter right on schedule. Now, once you hit someone with a secondary attack, I'll have to show that here in the next battle. That'll put you in an enhanced state, and you have to be in that state in order to use your actual strategy skill. So I'm going to start off by hitting somebody with a secondary attack. That's this one. And then once I do that, I'm in an enhanced state. Then I can use this one, which is the strategy skill. Now you have chain skills that will go off, and that's when you're hitting something and then your other heroes are also hitting that same character. And when you have enough of those chain skills that go off, then it'll increase your tension, and then your tension cards will activate. And when your tension cards activate, then you get to use those special skills. Let me see if I can get one of those going here. So that's an example of your tension card skills going off. And you can basically also chain these together until the enemy is defeated. The chain will end if you actually defeat them. So if you had all 3 available and you kill them by the second one, then you won't be able to use the third one on that. Now, after your tension is super high, you get a chance to use your ultimate. There's an example of that right now. And that consumes the largest amount of tension, so it's going to almost deplete, or it might completely deplete it depending on what you're doing. Now, when it comes to regular non-boss enemies, there is a strategy to taking them on, which I didn't really pay attention to this at first, I wish I did, but you basically just hit them with primary attacks, and then you follow up with secondary attacks, and then you hit them with the strategy skill until the tension cards activate, and then you use your tension skill cards until they're defeated. And all you gotta do is just repeat that, and you'll pretty much have like a winning strategy for all of the regular non-bosses. Now, when you actually are fighting real bosses, you might want to sometimes save that tension instead of using it for activating those tension card skills. That way you can activate your ultimates. You might notice that this game shows you enemies on the screen, and I'm going to show you that right now. So you can choose to usually engage or not depending on the circumstances. The enemies have a line of sight, but they also can hear you if you get too close. Now, something that's cool when you're a high enough level like I am right now, they'll actually get scared and they'll just start running. Or I should say, when you're a high enough level over what the enemies are on the screen. And you can actually whack them with like a little physical attack, and then just take them down like that without even having to go into the battle. So it's like a battle skip option. Now, something that's really important when it comes to exploration is these respite units, and I'm going to show you that right now. Now, these act as sort of hub, so you can travel back to the part of the map with them, and this will let you access the crafting bench and recover your party's health, but it'll reset the enemies you've defeated once you use one. So anytime you get to a new area, you'll want to aim for the respite units, so that way you can activate them, and if you get stuck in a tough battle, you'll be able to retreat back to the closest respite unit that you were next to. Now, it's different if you were completely knocked out in a battle, because you have to, I think, either try the battle again or you end up in the clinic, which is kind of like in your home base where you start off. But if you choose to move to another respite unit, you'll have your map, and what you can do is they look like these little tower things, and you can just go to another tower, and then you can say move, and then it'll just teleport you over to those, which they come in super handy. Now, there's a lot of objects that are in the world too that you can interact with. That way you can collect resources, like these trash cans here. And treasure chests are pretty obvious. You'll see those all throughout the world. This one's already opened. Now, some objects, they can be smashed, so you want to make sure that you keep an eye out for that. Usually they're things like boxes. And there's other chests too that have like a special shield over them. I don't think I have one close by right now. Oh, there's one in the corner right there. So that one right there has a shield, and there's a little control panel that's next to it. And all you're going to have to do is just access the control panel. You'll do like a little type of puzzle, and then it'll deactivate the shield. Now, over to the big map over in your top left, it'll bring this up here. So this is how you know where you're going according to your objective, and you're probably going to reference this a whole lot. Now, on the screen, you're also going to see these little red guys. Now, these things are rifts. They're like special levels where you can get very specific higher rewards, so they'll always be a lot tougher than regular parts of the game. They're kind of like few and far in between, I believe, between what you normally do. You can kind of see on this map the area that I haven't explored yet. There's not too many of them. And most people that are in the world you don't really interact with when it comes to the NPCs. Some of them they will be if they're part of a specific objective, but most of them they're just kind of there. Wrapping up on some final thoughts, I'll start off with the downsides, but I'll end on a positive note. This game is getting a massive amount of negative Steam reviews. The reviews, I think, on like Google Play are a bit more mixed. Now, for me, I can say this is one frustrating game. You have to be pretty strategic when it comes to your battles. You need to learn to pick and choose who you're going to fight and when, and each fight can be a delicate balance. It's not a normal action hack and slash where you just randomly attack the enemy until they die. You need to make sure you lock onto the right target and keep attacking that target until it's down. Most battles can take a while, and each enemy unit has a chance of killing you even if they are basic units early on in the game. And then there's the enemy's tension phase, which is when they're in a more extreme mode. Their attacks do maximum damage, and they'll wipe your team out very quickly if you're not paying enough attention, if you don't counter in time, if you don't dodge in time. There probably should have reserved that maybe just for the mini bosses and above, but they didn't. All regular enemies can do it, and it's one of the most frustrating, annoying aspects of the whole combat sometimes. When it's active, you get this blaring alarm sound in the background this entire time it's active, and it can last way longer, I think, than it should have, because depending on the enemy, all you can do at that point is just keep dodging until it's over. In fact, in the help section, that's exactly what it tells you to do. When they're in extreme tension phase, just start dodging. Now, you can still counter if you want to, but if you don't do it just right, you'll take a huge hit to your health. And when it comes to boss fights, you have some bosses that feel so imbalanced when it comes to their strength and abilities versus yours. Even when you're maxed out at the current level cap for your area, it's to the point that it massively takes away from the fun of the game sometimes. I had a lot of issues where certain attacks were very hard to anticipate, so the chance of you countering properly goes way down, and you'll fight some bosses over and over and over again. Now, I don't want people to confuse things. You can have games that are challenging and you can have games that are hard, but it's a balance to keep those things with everything else so it still comes off as fun in the end. So even when you lose, you'll want to try again without rage quitting. But this is one of the games that might take you away from that. It might temporarily make you rage quit. You'll still probably want to play again. It's hard for me to say because in order to cover this game, I needed to play the game enough. Now, this is not a casual gacha game by any means. It's more of a RPG, JRPG first with gacha elements, but it can take you a bit to go between respite points, and that's why you can't just pick this up, play for 5 minutes when you're on the toilet, and then put it away for later. You need to make it to the next point so you don't have to walk all the way there again, dodging enemies and whatnot, all the stuff that it took you to get there. And again, because this is not a typical gacha, you won't just be logging on trying to grind for some resources and then getting off. The resources you need are pretty much found in the world, with the exception of items for leveling up. Those are very far in between, so that keeps everyone's levels down, and that links back to those challenging battles I talked about earlier. This may not be a true negative, it's just different than what a lot of people are used to with modern mobile games. But on the positive side, it has a strong story to it. It's a mixture of very funny anime at times, but with dark undertones attached to it. You'll feel like you're watching an anime, in my opinion. The interactions between some of the characters are pretty hilarious, and there's a lot of dialogue with this. The characters feel pretty unique with their individual personality traits and styles. You'll feel like you can connect with each of them because they're not bland or half-baked characters. And even when the game can be challenging, I mentioned you may only rage quit temporarily because it has enough of a pull that you probably want to try again. You want to get past that area that you were stuck at last time. And the mix between the more pixel sprites on the exploration map with the full 3D combat is kind of a neat effect. Even though they're polar opposites, they tend to complement each other in a way that I didn't expect. So all in all, it's just important to remember that this isn't your typical gacha or your typical RPG. It's both together. I think with a lot of newer mobile games where people are only used to a certain style of game, this might be a bit of a shock to them because of the combined elements. But people who played the beta, I feel their frustrations were warranted, especially if they had a completely different experience, and then when the public release came out, it didn't live up to that initially. Now, the more I play the game, it does grow on me, but it's a slow and go process. The devs seem to be responsive to the feedback, however, so I'm curious how this will develop as time goes on. But that's all for this one. This has been Blue Screen of Tech, and I'll see you in the next game.